Right, let's just go straight into the power rankings.
Top or bottom? Are we starting top or bottom?
I'd say we'll start off at the top. We'll go through consternation. We'll get towards the bottom, and then we'll obviously try to have to meet somewhere in the middle. Will we just start off with the most obvious one? Limerick number 1, yeah?
There's nothing to suggest from the league, as particularly the way it finished, that they're not still the standard bearers.
Galway number 2.
I don't think you could have anybody else number 2. From what we've seen in the league, they obviously beat Limerick during the league as well. So I don't think you could have anybody else number 2, to be honest with you.
Yeah. People, get your comments in here and help us. I mean, just probably, maybe I should have gone with tip number 1, shouldn't I?
To be honest with you, if anybody disagrees with Limerick 1 and 2, I'd nearly be worried. Unless they're putting Galway 1, Limerick 2, potentially. But I don't, it'd be hard pressed to disagree with those two being the top 2.
Yeah, and the criteria is open. It's all about all the different factors in there, what they've done in the past, where you think they're going, how do you think these teams would match up if they're playing against each other. Like styles make fights. Some people might think that Tipperary would struggle against Limerick, but Tipperary would beat Cork, and yet Cork might struggle against Tip, but they could go on and beat Limerick. So let us know what you think. Who do you think should be at the top? And Michael Verney has dropped off there, which is absolutely handy when you're in the middle of a live video. But I'm going to blast on with my power rankings in the meantime. I'm going to put, so the next teams in the ranking there. So you've got Galway, and Limerick as 1 and 2. I'm going to go and put Tipperary in as number 3 just yet. That mightn't suit absolutely everybody, but I'm going to go with it anyway. And I think then you've got the likes of Cork, Waterford, Kilkenny. So out of those, I'm definitely going to need people to get comments in here to help me out, because that's a tough one to go with. I think at the moment, based on last year's All-Ireland semi-finals, I think you'd have to put Waterford in at number 4. As I said, help me out here now, because I'm flying solo. I think at number 5, so this comes down to who do I think could win between Cork and Waterford. Like Wexford are obviously in this conversation as well, just not 100% sure based on their form last season when they lost their two championship games by 22 points in total. And even in 2019, they were Leinster champions and pushed Tipperary pretty far. But
what happened there, Shane? I'm not quite sure what happened, but I'm presuming you've put Tip in number 3 in my absence.
No, I actually rejigged the whole thing. It's now Tip, Limerick, go. So you went off there. I've been flying solo for the last minute or two. Did your mammy ring you or something and interrupted the line?
No, I don't actually know what happened, to be honest with you. There's no incoming calls or anything like that. But I'm adamant that Waterford are number 3, though.
You're adamant ahead of Tipperary?
Yeah.
Well, I had them penciled in thinking, I mean, sure, this is a no-brainer. Like Waterford haven't beaten Tipperary in the championship for 13 years. You surely wouldn't dare make that call.
Are we going on like recent form? I think they beat Tipperary there last week, and they got to an All-Ireland final and Munster final last year, whereas Tipperary were beaten in the Munster semi-final and beaten in an All-Ireland quarter-final.
League is league.
I'm talking about last year's championship as well.
They didn't beat us in the championship last year.
No, but they got much further than you.
Yeah, but huh?
They were also beaten by much less against Limerick when they played them in the Munster final too than you were.
So do you think this year, if Tipperary and Waterford meet in the championship, that Waterford will win?
I do, actually.
Go away.
I do, yeah. I think Waterford will get to the Munster final this year again, yeah.
Well, Jimmy Juice's borrows a regular comment and keep them coming. He says, I'd have to agree with Verney. Daisha at number 3. I
think I know it was only one game, but I really liked what I saw against Tip the last day. There were glimpses of it against Galway. Iarla Daly was obviously missing against Galway. Gleeson was centre back. I think he's key. If they have Prunty available and Gleeson's available, they will be Clare. Yeah, and I think they will be Tip. Yeah.
Oh, I'm aghast. I'm not agreeing with this. I'm not going with it just yet. But let's see what Pádraig Hurley has to say.
Come on, Pádraig, Tip 5. Go on, you boya.
Wow. Waterford 3, Kilkenny. Obviously, Leinster is weaker than Munster, and I'm sure that's why he's going for that. Kilkenny 4, Tip 5, Cork 6. Tip can't be 3 as the team hasn't moved on at all. Too many of the older lads will still play.
Can you tell me, Shane, and there were some bright points of the league for Tipperary, definitely. But, where do you see them at now? I'll put it this way. Is Pádraig Matter going to be playing fullback in the championship? Something I must say, off the record or not, that you said would not happen in this year's championship when he was playing there against Cork. Like, have they moved on from last year?
I think they've rejigged, certainly. I mean, Pádraig Maher was wing back last year, and sometimes I think he might have been the sweeper the odd time. But yeah, he's gone to full back. Remains to be seen how it goes. I think there's certainly mismatches that can happen there. And this is the thing, like, all players have to have pace and everything. They basically have to be able to tick every sort of a box these days. But one thing you absolutely need is pace, because that will be found out very, very quickly. Have Tipperary moved on? Well, I like seeing Seamus Kennedy centre back because he's got that pace to sweep in and around. But part of me would nearly rather see Ronan Maher play full back. Part of me would like to see. I can understand why Barry Heffernan would be corner back marking the travelling corner forward, but I'd like to see him in the half back line as well. Paddy Cadell midfield, if they actually try and work the balls through the line, I think that's a progression for this year. If they play Jake Morris inside rather than outside and they pin good ball into him and Callan, I can see that being dangerous. Michael Breen is still being used out of position as far as I'm concerned, not getting the sort of shake out of him that you'd like. Noel McGrath's back up to centre forward. He was obviously looked a jaded player last year after playing 12 weeks in a row or something with Lockmore. John McGrath, the same. I don't know if Tipperary have moved on all that much. It's probably a fair point. I still think if Tipperary hit the ground running, that Tipperary can beat any team there, probably with the exception of Limerick. So that's why I would actually make a case for tip number 2. But if you were to say between two very close teams, Galway and Tipperary, who have made more progress in 2021 and who has more pace and balance and that sort of stuff, I'd say Galway have taken a little bit of a step away. So that's why I'm completely comfortable with Limerick 1, Galway 2, and then I'm comfortable with Tipperary 3.
I don't understand. Fair enough, they're 2019 All-Ireland champions by default, in my opinion. But
hold on now, 1 second now. You're cutting the back off a great county and an unbelievable All-Ireland win, hammering Kilkenny in the All-Ireland final, of course.
14-man Kilkenny.
Who made him get sent off?
What was I going to say to you? I think there's loads of potential in Tip, and I think that this is going to sound silly, but I think there could be dark horses. You know what I'm saying by dark horses, because Limerick are such strong favourites and Galway are almost such strong second favourites that Tip nearly are seen as dark horses, and they could well, go very, very well. But I think based on what we've seen this year, like they've been quite defence-minded in nearly all their games up until probably the Waterford game. I just haven't seen enough. I didn't see enough in last year's championship. On all known form that we have over the past 7 months, I haven't seen enough.
Yeah, you couldn't see much there during the 6 months of the country being shut down. It was hard to show too much. But Watford are down players. I mean, if Conor Prunty is out, and I'm not entirely sure how long he'll be out. Tyke de Burke is out for the season. We haven't seen Pádraig Mahoney just yet. Shane Fives has picked up a knock as well. Look, I'd be pushing hard to have Tipperary ahead in the pecking order here. If we can get a few other comments in and people let us know, is it Tip, is it Waterford, who's ahead between those two? And there's other counties as well that have to come into the reckoning here. Jimmy Juice's bar again. I honestly think Tip have a better chance against Limerick than Galway from the type of hurling the two sides play. Don't know if I agree with that. Kevin O'Sullivan, Limerick followed by Galway. Tip third after a showing against Galway. Tip plays a lot of stock on their matches against Galway in the league. Waterford very close to Tip with players in form. Who's the team that nobody wants to face? Now there's a question. Who's the team?
An in-form Cork, I would say, is the team that not too many people want to face.
But that's if their game plan works of working the ball out from the back. Like I think Cork would beat Tipperary quicker than Waterford would beat Tipperary, but I would still put Waterford ahead of Cork in the pecking order here.
It's like you're talking in riddles almost.
I know. Well, for a clown like you, it certainly would be.
Sorry, can you just repeat what you said? No.
The way we often say, I think Cork have a better chance against Limerick than Tipperary do, but I think Tip could beat Cork. Similarly here, I think Tipperary would beat Waterford quicker than they'd beat Cork, but I would fancy Waterford to beat Cork.
I tell you what, Shane, I think you're underestimating Waterford to some extent. I think Waterford bring a crazy pace to the table. I think Waterford would frighten that Tip defence. I genuinely do. And the
That's if
matchups would
Tip
have to
played
be
the same way as they did the other day.
Yeah, well, I think the matchups would still have to be really, really on the money from a Tip point of view. Saying that, like, obviously Seamus Callan's going to come back into more form over the next, 3 weeks. You're expecting more from them, but yeah, I'd be adamant that Waterford are three. From what I've seen, I think they were one of the teams that probably learned most from the league as well, and saw what failed and saw what they needed to remedy. And I genuinely think like Iarla Daly's so important centre back. I think it's. I don't think I'm overstating it. Maybe I am. But I just think he's a huge player for them there.
Yeah, and Watford though were 10 points to 5 down against Limerick, and it wasn't until the red card to Seamus Flanagan that things turned around a little bit. It kind of feels like we've glossed over Limerick a little bit, and we're not paying them their dues, but we're putting them number one. We know all the class they have, and the same with Galway as well. Like even last year, they pushed Limerick to within 3 points, but it looks like they've kicked on a bit. But maybe Limerick have too. But I still feel like it's Tipperary next. Keep getting the comments in because we will kind of have to fix on the order at some point here. Where are you putting Cork and Kilkenny in here?
I would probably I'd have Waterford 3, Tip 4, Kilkenny 5. I'd say. You have to remember Kilkenny were playing in the weaker of the two divisions. In one of the real competitive games, you would have been expecting them to beat Antrim. And you would have been expecting them to beat Laois. They were beaten by Clare in the last game.
And I thought there were signs of like they were poor in certain aspects. Adrian Mullen going off injured didn't help, nor did Wally Walsh, who looked like he was on top of the ground again. Maybe not as good last season. But yeah, I think there's certain frailties in that Kilkenny team. And if TJ Reid doesn't catch fire, which is going to be hard to do at the age of 33 in a breakneck speed championship, but I could still put them ahead of Cork because Cork just don't seem to be able for it against Kilkenny.
Well, I put it to you this way: if you're looking at from a betting prospect of knowing what you're going to get out of those two counties, I think you know what you're going to get out of Kilkenny. Generally, you still probably don't know out of Cork. From a Kilkenny point of view, conceded 4 goals against Clare. David Reedy walked through, the centre of defence, which was very, very worrying. Still not sure, there could be any one of 4 or 5 players playing cornerback, be it Tommy
or
Walsh, be it Tommy Walsh, Kieran Wallace, Joey Holden, Conor Delaney, Paddy Deegan. Like there's a lot of guys there. There's not that solidity or consistency that we would normally think of with Kilkenny. Where does Killian Buckley play, if at all? Who partners? Probably Conor Fogarty at midfield.
Richie
it's
Lahey
still up
maybe.
In the air.
Yeah, it's very much up in the air. It could be Richie Lahey. So I don't think we're fully settled on that. I think we're still trying to figure it out as we go here. Paul Scully says Clare could be a difficult team. No matter who they play in Munster, they'll be the underdog this year, and the team are knitting together nicely for Lohan. That is very, very true. I think the people of Clare are very much behind Lohan, and they're playing like a well-knit unit. They don't seem to leave themselves exposed all over the field. Very impressed against Dublin, very impressed against Kilkenny as well. But I actually think there's more in them because sometimes their use of the ball isn't as good as it could be. They don't get Aidan McCarthy and Tony Kelly into the game as often as they might. So, do you think, like after what they did the other day against Kilkenny, why are Clare beneath Kilkenny here?
I suppose Kilkenny won Leinster last year, got to an All-Ireland semi-final last year.
But they're in a handier province.
Fair point, Jed. They were probably closer to Waterford than Clare were in last year's championship as well. And Clare were beaten obviously in their first game. What did they win? Clare won 3 games in the league, I think, didn't they? No, they were beaten by Wexford. They won
3 and lost 2.
Yeah, beaten by Wexford and beaten by Antrim. Like, in fairness, Kilkenny had 4 wins at the end of the campaign.
Yeah, Clare threw it away against Wexford. They were up by a nice few points, red card to Liam Corrie, and then Wexford did very well to turn it around later on. By the way, actually, Rory O'Connor, another player who was absolutely brilliant in the league, and we didn't really talk about him. So we're going to
I'd be worried, Shane. I'd be worried if I was the Waterford lads. I think Waterford are on top of the ground. I think they're flying. But Clare are coming into that game in a serious position, and they're coming in really good form. That's why I literally can't wait for the opening weekend. I think that's going to be an absolute cracker of a game.
Are Clare ahead of Cork here, or do Cork get the nudge?
No, I'd still probably have Cork ahead of Clare, based because they played in Division 1A and produced a couple of big results, but they did tail off a bit towards the end, which is a worry. I tell you what, it's put it this way. I said the same on Kilkenny. If you're putting Clare and Cork up against each other, I think I have a fair idea what I'm going to get from Clare each day. I'm still not sure what I'm going to get from Cork. So yeah, like that's a flip flop there for me, probably. You know.
So are we putting Clare ahead of Wexford based on the championship game last year when Tony Kelly destroyed them? And maybe this year, if they hadn't to go down to 14 men, it felt like that they were playing the better hurling. So if they were to meet in championship, I would be going with Clare here.
I'd be going the same, Shane. Yeah, I haven't seen much from Wexford this year to suggest that they're going to make a big charge. Maybe I'm wrong, but I haven't seen enough. And that first half performance in Kilkenny was atrocious.
Are Wexford ahead of Dublin though?
100%. Dublin are down near the Shane. We're going through 11 teams here, and Dublin are either 10 or 11.
Well, so you're suggesting that either Antrim or Laois are ahead of them?
I surely am, yeah. Antrim finished ahead of them in the league on 5 points, and Dublin were on 4 points.
Yeah, but like when they played each other, like Dublin, no, I think certainly Dublin are ahead of both Antrim and Laois here. Well, look, I think Laois are going to be 11th out of 11 here. I don't think there's too much debate on that. We're putting Wexford at 8, and then for me, Dublin are absolutely ahead of Antrim. I don't see any kind of question of that at the moment.
Okay, you're basing what you're saying on the head-to-head when they played each other. That's
to mention the last few years that Dublin have showed they can compete regularly against the top counties, whereas Antrim are going in out of nowhere really to see how they can get on.
Fair point. Antrim obviously beat Clare, drew at Wexford. They beat a Clare team that beat Dublin quite well. They drew with a Wexford team that beat Dublin quite well, and they beat Laois. So fair enough. I think there's a case could be made for Antrim at 9, coming in much better form. Won 2A last year, won the McDonagh last year, and finished ahead of Dublin in the league.
I've no doubt that they're on a really strong trajectory in the right way, and they have a lot of skill, a lot of quality. But I think Dublin are a bit more seasoned at this level. I think Keane Boland can do a bit of damage against them. I think he's a very good player, as I've said before. Ronan Hayes, I think, can. Danny Sutcliffe's in good form. If Dublin get their strongest team out, I can, like Owen O'Donnell, I think he gave Antrim a torrid time from full back the first. It was a funny thing to say about a full back giving the opposition a torrid time. But to me, I find it strange that you're pushing this argument so hard. To me, Dublin are certainly ahead of Antrim, and I think they'll prove that in the championship.
I think you have two teams going in a different trajectory. I think Dublin are going downwards since 2019. I think Antrim are going upwards, and I think Antrim have a serious shout at a shock. And that's why I cannot wait for that opening weekend.
But you said that in the league, like you said, I think Antrim win this game, and I said Dublin are definitely going to win it.
Yeah, good man. Fair play to you. Well done for predicting that probably the 1 to 5 favourites won the game. Congratulations on that. The championship game is the game that really matters.
Okay, let's look at some of the other comments. Stephen Mahan says Limerick 1, Galway 2, Tip 3, Waterford 4, Clare 5, Kilkenny 6, Cork 7, Wexford 8, Dublin 9, Antrim 10, and he hasn't even bothered with Laois, which is obviously going to be tough to take. Alan Owens, your buddy again. No team will want to go into either Ennis or travel to Antrim. Both are banana skin teams for the so-called stronger teams. SSRI, there's 6 teams in the chasing pack to Galway and Limerick with very little between any of them just now.
But that's a very fair point, Shane, and that's why it is it could be an interchangeable feast. Tip Kilkenny, Cork, Clare, probably Clare just a maybe off, but those 3, 4, 5 are really interchangeable pieces.
Yeah, and yet Tipperary seem to do pretty well against a lot of these teams regularly, and you're putting them all together and you're just ignoring track record in recent years and the All-Ireland medals in the back pocket. But I suppose that'd be you, all right?
Shane, I ignored them in 2019 and ended up All-Ireland champions, so you should be happy enough.
Yeah, so Don Davern, Clare consistency kills them. SSRI, Antrim v Dublin.
I'm not sure about that, Don, to be honest with you. Clare started slowly in the league, and that's fair enough, but I thought they were consistent enough throughout it. Like, outside of that result, Liam MacCarthy getting sent off, they would have beaten Wexford. They would have had 4 wins out of 5, so I'm not so sure about that.
Yeah, Kevin O'Sullivan, Waterford's injuries will be crucial. Hopefully they're not having another 2018 in that regard, and everything did go against them that year.
None of them are that serious. That's the only thing I'd say. They all have a good shot at being back.
Yeah, Jimmy Juice is bar now. He's backing you here.
Go on, Jimmy.
Offaly are clearly back, lads. Will we not put them in around 9 or 10? No, fierce improvement.
I wish we could. I'd say we'd be lynched if we put a Christy Ring Cup team in ahead of anybody in the top 10.
Well, if anyone had the ignorance to try it, it might be you.
No. If the boot was on the other foot, I'd say you would try it. I never forget. I was you know, the way the pubs were open before Christmas there, and I was in the pub one of the nights, and a couple of young lads came up to me and said, "What is that Stapleton lad at? You were picking an all-star team there, and you tried to put Seamus Callan on it last year, and that's just typically you."
I am the most impartial man you'll meet. So now, about getting Tipperary back up to number 3.
To be honest with you, I don't know. I still have Waterford at 3, and the only way probably to decide it is for the people to decide it. You know what I mean? Because I'm not going to budge on Waterford 3. I'm really impressed. I've been really impressed with Waterford, particularly towards the latter stages of the league. And I think they have a good shot getting to a Munster final again.
Do you think Kilkenny fans can feel a little bit aggrieved here? I mean, I think in the last couple of years, Waterford beat them in the semi-final last year. There was those couple of collapses against Dublin where they obviously saw the game out, and against Waterford to lose that semi-final. 2019, obviously beaten heavily enough in the All-Ireland final. You've obviously mentioned the red card as a Kilkenny fan yourself, despite being from Offaly. But I don't think we can make a case from them being ahead of Waterford or Tip just here. But that doesn't mean I don't think that they could beat either of those teams.
Yeah, and
obviously they beat Galway last year, they are Leinster champions, so it kind of forget that.
They've beaten the 1 and 2 in the last 2 championships.
And yet we're putting them down at 5.
Yeah, but the only thing I say is that, Shane, do I think Kilkenny can win the All-Ireland? I honestly don't. Do I think they could beat somebody along the way that is a serious All-Ireland contender? Potentially. But I don't think they can string 3 or 4 together. I don't think they have the quality. And I think, Shane, if Kilkenny people are saying that they should be 3 or 2 or 1, I think expectations need to be reduced a small bit in Kilkenny. To me, I'm not sure if I don't think the quality is there to win All-Ireland.
You have me heartbroken here. I think we more or less we agree, and there's a couple of little sticking points here. As far as I'm concerned, Tip are 3, Waterford are 4, and Dublin are 9, and Antrim are 10. Everything else we seem to agree on. So are you going to meet me halfway? Look, if Tip meet Waterford in the Munster semi-final, who's going to win that game?
Waterford.
Really?
Yeah. Oh no, I know you're saying Waterford haven't beaten them. The goal, aside from the ghost goal, they would have beaten them in 18. Would you admit that at least?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's part of your argument. Gone.
Yeah, but I mean the result, they didn't get over the line.
Shane, there's a really difficult question. There's a really difficult conundrum coming for you here. You're either going to have to give way on your native Tipperary or your new home in Dublin. One of them is going to have to give. Either Antrim are going to have to go ahead of Dublin, or Waterford are going to have to go ahead of Tip. One or the other.
No. I couldn't give ground on either of them.
Well, then I hope people are ready to stay tuned into this evening.
Yeah, we're going nowhere. Rolling coverage here. Hurling Power Rankings until the championship throws in.
Okay, Shane, I'll put it to you this way. There's probably more evidence to have Waterford at 3 than to have Antrim at 9.
Yeah, I would accept that there's probably, you can make a stronger case. I don't believe your case at all for Antrim being ahead of Dublin, even though they're on the upward curve, no doubt about it. Tipperary a little bit. Yeah, I've talked about Tipperary and some of the weaknesses there, even though the potential, I think, is there to beat everyone except Limerick, judging on how things are going at the moment. I don't agree with it, but I'll accept it. So we'll go with that. So
this is magic.
Yeah,
magic.
So Limerick, Galway, Waterford, Tip, Kilkenny, Cork, Clare, Wexford, Dublin, Antrim, Laois. So that's it. That's our Hurling Power Rankings. That was tough going. Hey,
don't show your face around Bursley for a couple of weeks. Don't show your face around Bursley for a couple of weeks until maybe Tip are done enough to be justified being in 1 or 2, I'd say.
Yeah. Right, that's it from the Hurling Show. As you know, we're brought to you by Bamboo, the new Hurley from Torpy. I'll get some strike out of that, and you can get 10% off the Hurley by going to the website, which is in the video description, and using the promo code OurGame. I think a couple of more comments have come in right at the dead here. Great selection, lads, in fairness. And Alan Owens, definitely Statler and Waldorf stuff now, boys. So that's about the height of it. Join the OurGame Supporters Club at Patreon for €5 per month to get audio podcasts of the Hurling and Football Show and much more exclusive material.